what the exact time is that you need to wait after a big, satisfying win to talk about something negative, but we're okay to talk about Broderick Jones today, right? Yeah? Okay, good. Good afternoon to you. Good Wednesday afternoon. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is the new Double Shot Show. It comes your way every weekday at 4 p.m. Eastern. Brod, I feel like I need a disclosure here. Brod's a good dude. I've really gotten to like this kid. He is not a problem in that context. He's not lazy. He's not unmotivated. He's not lacking some sort of team level awareness. He's okay. What happens to Brod on the field is that he just loses focus. He loses his awareness, loses his alertness, and that's why you've seen, unfortunately, a few times this season where he'll just line up at right tackle. He'll be down there in that stance, and someone just unplugs the controller, and everyone else is moving. Football's been snapped, and he's still there. That's such a bad thing that I feel I don't even need to say it. But the question and the challenge that faces the Steelers is, what are you going to do about it? How do you fix this? Pat Meyer, the offensive line coach, was made available to reporters today on the South Side, and this is what he had to say on Brod.
Brod's been awesome. I mean, his attitude, he's nothing but listening. He just got to learn. He's got to focus. I think he's just got to focus each and every play. He plays a lot of good plays. You watch him, and it's like, wow, he does some really good things. And I think it's just more him, just again, young, hasn't played a whole NFL season. He's 23 years old. It just, he's going to grow. But the thing that Broderick is a confident kid. He plays hard. He loves the game. You just got to continue learning. We just got to get him to learn it faster.
Now, what stinks about this whole scenario is that if you think about it right now, especially in the last couple of weeks with Russell Wilson, although it got started in Las Vegas with Justin Fields, is that the whole offense is sort of raising its own floor. The foundation of it is becoming that much stronger. Why? Because more guys are getting more involved. You're seeing now all of the wide receivers get involved. You're seeing now both of the tight ends get involved, although I'd still like to see Pat Freiermuth get more. You're seeing the offensive line, most of it, feeling pretty good about itself as it relates to the way they're running the football. And that's all great. What you don't have is the right tackle feeling good about himself. And that's not sustainable. And at the same time, he's not replaceable. And I mean that in the literal sense, because he is backed up right now, in essence, by Calvin Anderson. Don't forget, Troy Fautanu, injured reserve. Dylan Cook, injured reserve. Yeah, it's Brod and it's Calvin Anderson. So do you want to put in someone like a Calvin Anderson and say, hey, just at least get us this much? At least we know what we're going to get out of this guy. Or do you want to continue to try to maximize somebody who did not have any problem with any of this stuff that we're talking about here in 2023? When we come back, heading to the South Side.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
Joined now by Chris Halleck on the South Side. The Steelers had their coordinators and coaches and everybody else out there sharing their thoughts with the reporters heading into the bye week. It's a really fun event for media. Those are guys that you don't normally get to talk to. and you always learn
Oh yeah,
something.
no,
don't
it was
you?
it
You
was
know
a
what
lot
I'm
of fun
saying?
today. It was actually not as hectic as I expected it to be because I think we were all expecting like all of the assistants to be kind of talking at the same time. So you're gonna be like, okay, well, I want to go talk to Carl Dunbar, and I want to go talk to Pat Meyer, and you want to go talk to all these different guys. But we were actually all able to kind of talk to them separately, and it was really really good. You got a lot of good stuff.
Oh, it's amazing. Some of the most telling conversations that I have in that facility are with not even necessarily the coordinators, but the guys, the positional coaches, because they can get so specific, and they can share information with you that maybe, believe it or not, even Mike Tomlin doesn't know, because these guys are living with these players basically day after day after day. Chris, the one guy that I feel gets discussed the least, and I could actually probably go through a bunch of positional coaches before we get to him, is Terrell Austin. And I believe that that's in part because there's a perception, not without cause, that Mike Tomlin is the de facto defensive coordinator. So when things go wrong, you blame Tomlin. When things go well, of course, everybody just stays quiet. With TA, though, we had Landon Roberts in here yesterday. Every single thing he referred to as a call, as an adjustment, and everything else, every single thing pointed straight to TA. He is the coordinator of this team, isn't he? Let's start there.
I think people think about like the way coaches like Kyle Shanahan or other play calling head coaches are. Yeah. So they think that
Andy
Mike
Reid,
Tomlin is sitting there with a play sheet in his hand, and he absolutely has, play sheets and everything but he's not sitting there calling plays every single time in between, for every single snap for the defense. That is Terrell Austin's job. Terrell Austin is the defensive coordinator of this team. Now, Mike Tomlin sets the team's, agenda for how they want to play. Yeah.
The tone. If he says we're going to bring the house this week, or we're not going to blitz Kirk Cousins, or we're not going to blitz Joe Flacco, there's a really good chance that's the head coach. If nothing else, the head coach
Mike
is
Tomlin
nodding.
sets the philosophies, and it's up to the coordinators to execute those philosophies. A really good example of that, and Terrell Austin touched on it a little bit today, but it's not really breaking news either, is when he became defensive coordinator, the takeaways started going up a little bit more often. Mike Tomlin wants splash. That's what he wants from his defense, and taking the ball away is the ultimate splash for the defense because you give the ball right back to your defense or to your offense. And so, I mean, and you look at what the Steelers are doing right now. They have this, tied for the second best turnover differential in the league. They're right up there in terms of actual takeaways. So that, I think, is a credit to Terrell Austin taking the philosophies given by Mike Tomlin and calling it as need be, whether it be exactly the way you want to do it or not. They're not blitzing the quarterback nearly enough or whatever it is. The fact of the matter is Mike Tomlin says, I want splash. Terrell Austin's providing it.
And within that, of course, what's incumbent on Austin is this is a lot like, the guy who runs Apple looks at the iPhone and says, okay, I want this button over here to wash my windows. Okay. And so all the techies, they go, what? You got to be kidding me. We can't make that thing wash windows. But then somebody goes and does it, and the guy who runs Apple gets all the credit for it. Right? Okay, so in this case, you have TA being told, yeah, we want splash, but how do you generate it? One of the main things that TA has brought, I think, to this defense this season is we're not going to blitz. We're capable of it. We know we can do it. We might surprise you with it someday. We won't necessarily put it on film, but we don't need to do that. Because when we've got TJ Watt over here, we've got Alex Highsmith over here, we've got Cam Hayward, Keanu Benton, Larry Ogunjobi, and a bunch of other guys in the middle, we're just going to come at you with what we've got, and you're going to see a whole lot of black and gold when you're dropping back to pass. That's a TA
for sure. And again, I do think that kind of plays into also the way Mike Tomlin wants to play defense. I think Mike Tomlin wants ideally to be able to rush 4, drop 7 back into coverage, and still be able to put pressure on the quarterback. And so it's up to then Terrell Austin to make sure that, okay, how can we best rush those 4 guys so that they can get to the quarterback more often than any other 4-man rush in the league. And then also for those 7 are dropping back, whether it's in cover 3 or cover 2-man or cover 4 or cover 6, whatever they're doing, is to make sure that those coverages are coached up in a way where those guys can execute those coverages consistently. And so that is where Terrell Austin really does his job, is making sure that all of those details are coached up, and then also the actual play calling itself. So like when Mike Tomlin says it's 3rd down, I actually want you guys to blitz right now, he may say, TA, bring the house. But Austin's the one calling the play. He's the one who's like, okay, I know what blitzes are supposed to work for this based off of our game plan. So we'll bring blitz D or whatever is on their play sheet.
I just don't know that he gets enough either credit or blame from the fandom. And I think when you're talking about a defense that's been this effective, that has made visible, tangible, in-game adjustments, and not waiting till halftime. Chris, we've noticed this pattern, you and I, throughout the season and covering all of these games, that the adjustments get made like after the opening series. Like you'll see whether it's in Indianapolis, even the Raiders. Remember went right down the field with what Patrick Queen called their greatest hits album? Okay. But an adjustment was made, and that was the end of the Raiders. And you've seen this throughout the season. I have a feeling, and this is just me here, that this defense can end up being the best in the NFL. Because if we're talking right now, in terms of scoring, allowing points, you're talking about the Titans, and that's not going to hold up. Okay, they're just on the field way too much because their offense can't get anything done. And other than them, who are you looking at around the league as being like great defensively? That should be Pittsburgh. So there's a burden that goes on the coordinator, of course, onto the head coach when you have that kind of talent, when you have that kind of capability. But they're living up to it, and there's something to be said for that. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I think that the overreaction to poor performances, for example, they got gashed on the ground against the Giants. I mean, just absolutely gashed. They gave up more than 150 yards on the ground. That's not going to cut it. It doesn't matter what era of the NFL you're living in. That's never going to cut it. And so people will look at that.
And by a guy who had 200 yards.
Yeah, and so when that happens, like people will overreact and be like, see, this defense isn't nearly as good as they think it, or we think it is, or they're overrated or whatever. It's like, well, no, they still only allowed 18 points, and they still it was still overall, like, this is still a defense that still has way more upside than and that's, I think, the scary part of it is that they're the second ranked defense in terms of scoring. And I still think that, like, we talk about the dam about to break on offense, I honestly think that this defense still has at least another level or two. Like, I still think that we haven't even seen this defense play its best ball yet.
Well, it also has a Nick Herbig or two. There's still guys who can come back and make a bigger impact overall on that group. Don't forget about Montravius Adams, who gets out on the field, quite a bit. Yeah, I know their main guys have stayed on the field and knock on whatever synthetic wood wherever you can find it. But when you're looking at the secondary, I don't know that even with all the interceptions that you've seen from Joey Porter and Dante Jackson, now Beanie Bishop, you're still waiting on the first from Minka, of all people. You're still waiting on prime Minka. I just think there's more there, and I think that's to the credit of everybody, including the coaching staff, including TA, because he's the voice, he's the name that they use. They don't say Coach T told us to do this. Okay, it's
and a really good example of that is like when Austin was asked about it today, because Cam Sutton, now reinstated, can return to the team. he just flat out said, is like, he's not automatically getting a job back. Like, we're gonna, I mean, Beanie's like he said upward trajectory was the actual terminology he used. And so he's like, we'll see where Cam's at when it comes to his football readiness and everything like that. Now, granted, like, that's another great body to have in terms of the secondary. And then, Corey Trice is also getting closer too. So they're about to have more and more guys. But again, like you hear, Austin has his finger on the pulse of this defense, and you can hear it from the way players talk about him, and you can hear it from the way he talks about his own defense too.
I'm surprised he avoided something moving train, because that's a moving train line waiting to happen here. When we come back, J1Q.
Safety is a habit. Gun safety and responsible storage are no different. Help prevent gun accidents, misuse, and theft. Keep firearms safe and secure when not in use. For safe storage options, visit projectchildsafe.org.
And for today's J1Q, let's head 2 states to the south.
Hey DK, this is Eric checking in from just outside Raleigh, North Carolina, and I've got just one question for you. Do you think that the ascendancy last year of Jaylen Warren has helped Najee Harris? It seems to be that Najee's a little faster, maybe more explosive this year. Do you think the competition from Jaylen has spurred any of that? Thanks.
You know what's funny, Eric? If you use your terminology there, spurred, in the most literal possible sense, you're going to be correct, because I think that's where it began. I think if you go back a couple of years when Najee was, he'd run for like a yard and a half and a mini cloud of dust, and then Jaylen would come in and hit that same hole a lot harder and blow through it. And then you would see magically on the next series, Najee goes out there and ends up running in much the same way. Well, I don't think any of this applies anymore. I do think there are times when you've seen, notably in Indianapolis, where Najee would not get much done against the Colts line, and then Cordero Patterson goes out there and just right through everybody. Okay, that's good. That's momentary. I don't get that feel here. Najee is motivated right now through the roof. Now, he's not exactly the most open book when it comes to reporters, so I'm not going to be able to, share any sort of super intensive insight here into, what makes him tick. Kind of a private person in a different kind of way. But what I can tell you, I'm actually going to share 2 things with you here. The first is that I do know for a fact that he felt slighted, and I think this is obvious, by not getting the 5th-year option exercised by management. He felt he'd earned it over time. He was welcoming the possibility not only of having that option, but also of having an extension. Running backs' careers aren't very long, as you know, and he would have embraced having that kind of security. All right, that doesn't happen. He finds himself in this spot. He hears, sees, and reads, I'm sure, a lot of people, myself included, suggesting that Warren should play more than him and all this other stuff. Okay, motivation. But there's another thing in this that has nothing to do with him, and that's Ryan McCollum. And yes, I'm referring to that Ryan McCollum who took over at center when Zach Frazier went down. I don't want to start anything up here. I don't want to, get any kind of controversy or whatever going, but what I've been told from inside those 4 walls over there is that McCollum's performance at center over these past 2 weeks and change, beginning in Las Vegas, has made a significant difference in how Najee can attack the middle of the line, how he's drawing opposing linebackers, meaning the inside linebackers, closer together, and then running off to either side at an almost 45-degree angle. We have never seen that from Najee at the NFL level. Never. That's new. Now, again, that's got nothing technically to do with him or motivation or anything else. So there's a lot that goes into play. Bottom line, give the credit to 22. He's the one that's going out there and doing this. He's the one that's making this happen. I appreciate the question, Eric. I appreciate everybody checking out Double Shot. We'll be back with another one tomorrow.